I have expectations in life. When they're not met, an emotional transaction happens.
We have been alienated from our emotions.
A lot of people are emotionally not able to regulate themselves.
Our whole culture is based on the fact that we believe that we are because we think.
A lot of people are focusing on how can I be psychologically intelligent? But emotional intelligence is much more important because it allows us to really know how to communicate without allowing our emotions to intercede and confuse things.
That way we control ourselves better and we are more in tune with our inner self.
In the past, I was leaning so much more on other people validating me. And when I was invalidated, I didn't know who I was.
I believe that the first thing is not to take yourself too seriously.
I can't allow others to act and do and say around me however they choose, and I don't need to take it personally. I can just be within my own energy and realize that what they say is a projection of what they think about themselves, not so much about what they think of me.
If you are just fixed on your own ego, you're unable to see the other people in the world. You're unable to enjoy your surroundings.
I get to allow people to take responsibility for their crap, and I get to allow to take responsibility for my crap. I don't have to change anyone.
People, they will respect you more if you just go your way. The richness of life,
Right.
of existence, is in the engaging other people, in being able to share your emotions, and that's much more important than anything else.
Peace to me is like, hey guys, welcome back again to the Robbie Moore podcast show. And today we're going to be talking about managing your expectations and to stop emotional transactions. I'm here once again with a really good friend that I've met over the course of the last 6 months. I've really enjoyed spending my time with this person. He's helped me to grow a lot through my own expectations. And just hearing his stories and his experiences in life has been really profound. He also leads ayahuasca retreats. And today I'm going to introduce you to my really good friend, France.
Thank you for inviting me here, Robbie.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Wow.
You know, I've been, like we talked about last time, I've been waiting a few months to finally get you on the podcast. So it's been really, really good to have you. And so, I wanted to ask you, tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, where shall I start? Let me start at my return to Bogota a couple of weeks ago. I was here, and then I got sick. I had this terrible pain in my chest. I went to the hospital. Nor the cardiologist, nor the people that look at the lungs found anything. So then I decided I go back to Holland, where I come from, and have some more profound tests made. But also there they didn't find anything. And then I figured, well, maybe if these people cannot find anything, I should go to traditional doctors, go back to Colombia and take some ayahuasca, so that maybe through that herbal brew, I can get better again, because it works on the brain and it lets the emotions flow and influence your mind to the point that your mind might even wither away for a while, and your emotions get the overhand and show you things that you have in your heart, wisdom from the moment that the big bang exploded, right?
Right.
And with that wisdom, maybe change a bit my outlook on life.
So when was your first ayahuasca experience?
Ooh, that's a long time ago. That's back in the 80s. 87.
That's when I was born.
Well, congratulations. I'm glad that you were, so if not, we wouldn't be sitting here, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I was in Brazil, and I wanted to study ayahuasca because I'd heard so much about it. And I was going to a course. I did a course in theology at the Catholic University in Rio de Janeiro. And from there, I would then go once a week at least up the mountain there into the jungle higher up, where there was a temple, an ayahuasca temple, let's say a Santo Daime temple, where they had rituals using ayahuasca as a way for people to enjoy spiritual moments, let's say, right?
So ayahuasca has been around for a long time.
Ooh.
It's only been just commercialized recently, correct?
Yeah,
because
right.
there's, it seemed like the last few years it's only been exposed to the public eye. Or
I must say that already some 20 years ago, when I came back in Peru and went there in the jungle town, suddenly there were, on all the corners, you could find an old man saying that he was a shaman, and if you would pay him $100, he would help you out. And so it's been for a while, but I remember back in those years, like some 40 years ago, it was not commercialized yet. One could just go into the jungle and jungle towns and find shaman they would not ask for money. They would invite you to come to their place, and afterwards you could give them something, right? But it was not a commercial deal at that time yet.
How did they discover ayahuasca? What are the ingredients? How did one person say, this is going to help a lot of people?
Well, I believe that this is wisdom that from millennium back, at times even the animals, I don't know about ayahuasca, but I know about other mind-altering substances that animals take them. Almost all animals take, when they can, mind-altering substances, and that we have just learned it from our animal brothers and sisters, so to speak, right?
Wow.
We cannot say how that happened, but people used to, they didn't eat from a kitchen, they ate from what was offered them in nature. So I figured that people tried out all kinds of stuff, and then little by little over the millennia, they got to know what was good and what was bad and how things should be eaten and produced and maybe cooked a little bit and mixed with something else to make it stronger or make it tastier or whatever, right? Like other stuff.
So your first experience, what led you to want to do your first ayahuasca experience? What was it, an emotional kind of challenge you were having, or?
Well, I'd heard about ayahuasca, but my first big experience with mind-altering substances was when I smoked a joint back in the 60s. And I remember very well that I walked into this meeting, and there were lots of people standing around the table, and it was a very nice atmosphere. And then I got a joint, and some years prior, I had tried a joint, but it hadn't done anything for me. But just not to say no, I took a toke of the joint, and boom, it was like light exploded in all over my whole vision. The fields of vision became light, and right there, I lost my sense of self. I became like a baby again. And I had all kinds of fantastic experience that evening, mainly in the next half hour. The thing is that your mind in this experience, it goes, and then it comes back a little bit, and then again the process, the mental process, the cerebral process, let's say, continues. Your mind goes away again, and it's a coming and going, and you become always a little bit more aware again of your own. But you have all these impressions that you get from at the moment that your mind is gone, and you get these impressions from your emotions that have been set free because in your mind, in your brains, let's say, the product, whatever you take, ayahuasca, marijuana, whatever mind-altering substance, opens the brain a little bit. We have a barrier around our brains, about the inner brain parts, that protects these parts from too much blood, because that way we don't lose our self-consciousness. And because of the need for our self-consciousness to be able to act all the time in response to what is happening in the environment, the self-consciousness has to be constant. It cannot be, there has to be equilibrium and homeostasis so that you don't get self-conscious at one moment and you're out of your self-consciousness at another moment and you act on impulses that are not rational
that are not
at all.
healthy for you. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So based on what you're explaining, it seems like I've been going through a gradual process in my own life. I've obviously had many experiences, and a lot of my experiences have dealt with confusion and pain. And I think the last 3 or 4 years have been my awareness, my light. Of course, I haven't done ayahuasca, and marijuana is something I haven't used since I was a lot younger. So I think I've been gradually kind of experiencing maybe the hard and the long way, rather than, maybe ayahuasca or marijuana to you is something that really enlightened you within just a short period of time.
That's right.
Something that I experienced in my life recently is that you're right. The ego is always being active. I noticed that when I'm around a social gathering, I tend to be much more judgmental. I'm immediately judging other people around me. I'm kind of putting up my guards in a way because I'm protecting myself from being hurt from maybe previous experiences in the past. I'm normally always looking back in the past to really gauge, okay, I want to make sure that I don't want to get hurt again. So maybe I'm not going to allow people to let them in too much. And based on what you said, it really reminded me of really just allowing the ego to be there, but to be aware enough that I'm safe, that I can be authentic, that I can allow others to act and do and say around me however they choose, and I don't need to take it personally. I can just be within my own energy. I could be within my own self-love and realize that what other people do, what they say, is a projection of what they think about themselves, not so much about what they think of me. And I think it's interesting that what you've experienced is very enlightening for me, because we had an experience about a few months ago with the Chinese man at the hotel, and I was immediately taking it personally because he kept bombarding me with this political jargon about America, how America is the worst country and China is the best country. Which, seeing your reaction and how you laughed through the experience, it was almost like it was like the 100th experience you've had of another person taking something personally. And it was like you look back in retrospect to your old self and you just kind of laughed at the situation. What really helped me was seeing you react to it made me really feel silly about how I was taking it personally. So I really like that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about the fact that if you can take a little distance from yourself, from your own ego, and give yourself the possibility to look at the other people around you and the whole environment, whatever that might be, in a closer way, without letting yourself interfere in the experience, then you don't take it that serious if something happens, if something is being said to insult you or that you think might be insulting. No, you just take it lightly and can make fun of it.
I agree.
And that's what happened, because I remember that evening you got upset with this Chinese guy. And of course, you were right that he was kind of like aggressive in his talk, but on the same time, he was sincere at least, right? And I really appreciate that in his character. And that's what I tried to convey to you, even if it was laughing about a certain way that you reacted, and I thought it was overdone. But you could even take it that way, because I didn't want to insult you at all. I just wanted to make light of the situation.
I don't think you were insulting. In fact, something that I've done in my past, which I think I'm finally getting over with, is misperceiving situations based on my past experiences. I wasn't really raised in a very healthy environment. In fact, I love my family unconditionally. I love each and every one of my family members with so much care and love. And I respect that, whatever people's decisions are, I totally, just respect it. I felt personally, and I know my parents did the best they could, but I personally felt like I was an orphan. Living within a family environment. It's like I had my family, but I wasn't really emotionally seen. I wasn't emotionally validated. I wasn't really, I didn't really like have a sit down occasionally with my parents and said, hey, how you feeling? I was, as a child, always trying to figure it out. Is this feeling bad? Is it good? I was constantly gauging my environment out of threats.
Yeah, right.
And so I notice as an adult, as I'm healing my inner child and doing the work, I notice that I still do that as an adult. I'm gauging the situation. Like, for example, the Chinese man, I felt that was a threat because when I was younger, I always was teased. I was always dominated by people that decided that, they were just dominating the situation. And so I felt like that was a threat to me, right? So misperceiving the situation was even when you got up and you laughed, I misperceived it as I was being laughed at. Yeah, right. Which is a very common thing in my own life. But now what I recognize, and which is really liberating, based on the experience you said when you smoked the first joint, you had this light appear. It was like this light and security and safety. And I'm recognizing that light is slowly seeping into my life. And regardless of what other people say or do, now that I know I see this light within me, I don't have to take it personally.
Yeah, right.
Because whatever, imagine if I went around, or if we went around our whole lives basing how other people say or do things and how we feel about that. So we're constantly controlling our environment to protect us, to protect me. That doesn't make sense. Am I going to go my whole life trying to change situations or to force solutions just so I can feel protected? And I think this is a common thing that's happening in the Western culture, is a lot of people are canceling people or they're silencing people because, they don't want other people to have freedom of speech anymore because they're uncomfortable. It just doesn't make sense. So I think something that I flipped is that I can walk into any situation now, accept the circumstance as it is. I don't need to fight or flight. I don't need to leave the situation. I can stay and accept that I don't have to change anyone. I can respond differently. I don't have to react, but I can respond differently.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a big process in one's life. And like you say, you had to work and you're still working on it hard, right? I was very fortunate that I just had this moment of a flash and bliss, and that I've been working on that ever since, working with that experiment, with these feelings. Whenever I'm in doubt, I can go back to that one particular moment almost 60 years ago,
right,
and rely on it and judge the situation or judge what certain things that I'm reading that I have doubts about. And I can always go back, and that's fantastic. To have that inner security.
That's beautiful what you said, because sometimes I forget about the bliss. I forget that at one point I had so much joy and serenity and connectiveness with the people around me. But then suddenly my ego starts to convince me otherwise.
Yeah.
That I'm not safe. That other people are judging me, or that people are personally attacking me. I'll give you a perfect example. This has been a really good exercise for me. I get a shave here in Bogota at least two times a week. And the guys that give me a shave, there's about 4 guys that work there, and they're Venezuelans. And they love to tease. They love to laugh. They love to joke.
Good.
Right? So I told them, what one guy, in Colombia, they say marica, And marica means kind of like a gay term, fag or something like that. So they were all kind of joking around, and I said, sí, yo soy marica. They're like, eres marica? So every time I go to the shave now, we all tease each other about the word marica and who's next in line. And I told him at one point, like, every Tuesday I'm a marica. All the other days I'm not a marica, So they find that to be really funny. And the old version of me, the inner child in me, wanted to take it personally, because I think what happens is that in the past, depending on how other people teased us and how we took it personally, it kind of like goes into our adulthood. It's kind of like the Chinese guy. I took it personally because he reminded me of somebody in my lifetime. And it wasn't necessarily him, but he reminded me of somebody else, right? So going into this barbershop now, I allow them to have fun and make fun of myself. Because if I'm not making fun of myself, well, then I'm not having fun. I'm not having as much fun as they are. You know? And now I really truly believe they don't have any ill intent. They barely even know me. They're just a bunch of guys in a barbershop wanting to have a good time. And if I'm the joke of the matter and I know who I am at the same time, why am I going to stop them?
Yeah, right. Get uptight, right? They're just laughing, and you can laugh along if you realize that if you're that secure of yourself, right? You just can laugh along with these guys when they make these jokes.
It's true. And I think it goes back to expectations.
Yeah.
I expect that maybe in the past, I was leaning so much more on other people validating me. And when I wasn't validated, I didn't know who I was. But now that I have more of the light that you were explaining within me, I don't need to be validated. I get to accept and know who I am deep down inside.
Yeah.
And now I get to flip the script and actually validate others, which is a beautiful experience. So tell me about your family.
Well, my family, they all live in Europe. I have a bunch of brothers, one sister, and once in a while I go back to Holland or Belgium or France where they live and visit with them, and we have some good days together. Maybe we have a family reunion somewhere in Holland on the beach. I'm always happy to go there, but also always happy to come back to the Americas, because I've lived most of my life on this continent, and I feel that it's more vibrant, and people are more relaxed. They don't have all this cultural background, this cultural luggage that they have to slug around and make them not unable to just be themselves and let go. There's always certain very maybe internalized forms of reacting to people that makes the relations with people not as vibrant and as happy as, for instance, here in Colombia. And that's why I like to come back here. Here in Colombia, there is a certain atmosphere that even in other countries, like let's say in Peru, where I've lived for years too, the people are not that open as they are here. They're not as happy, because here in Bogota, you just talk to people in the street. They're right there, friendly, with joy on their face, right? Make you feel welcome.
Right.
So that's why I was happy that even though I was sick, that I could, from my sickness, come back to Colombia.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And try to heal here.
It's amazing, because every time I go back to the States, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I normally, when I leave the country, I end up being homesick to want to come back to the States.
Yeah.
I've been in Colombia now, it'll be 3 years in a couple of months. And every time I go back to the States, kind of similar to you, is I end up becoming homesick to want to come back here.
I wanted to tell you about this experience that I had, the marijuana experience, which was such a beautiful experience. It lasted maybe half an hour. And a very blissful moment. I was so happy. I had walked into a little night store there. It was in Montreal, a very simple store. I wanted something to eat. I didn't find something to eat, but in the eyes of the owner, suddenly I saw fear and I saw hatred, but he thought maybe that I was looking at things in a particular way. And he thought that maybe I was there to rob him and take something and run out. So as I walked up to his counter, he looked at me and I recognized the fear and the hatred in his eyes as feelings that I myself also had often, right? I mean, I think we all do. But at that moment, I just recognized myself in his eyes and I lost myself completely in his eyes. And at that moment, I just became one with him and with everything else. You know, what they call like oceanic belonging, cosmic consciousness, all these beautiful terms. But I just became one with this one fella. Through his eyes, I got into his soul, and he in my soul.
Wow.
So here I get all kinds of ideas go through my head as I lose myself. And then I get back to consciousness and I see the man, and instead of hatred and fear, he's a little bit on the side, but he has such a beautiful smile on his face too. He too himself had become rejuvenated by the rejuvenation that I had gone through because of the whole psychological process that I had passed since I smoked. And,
Wow.
it lasted maybe for half an hour, the whole
Right.
thing. So when that finished afterwards, I danced out of that store and I was dancing on the street from happiness, right?
Wow.
But at that moment also I said to myself, why would this be prohibited? This is such a beautiful thing. Why would our politicians, our intellectuals, don't they know about these things? I started wondering and I started getting all kinds of negative ideas that there might be something going on that we are not aware about. Everybody is made to believe that these things are bad, but maybe it's a big lie, maybe it's a big scheme. So I wanted to find out, and I've been studying off and on, right? I lived, I traveled, I lived a normal life, but still, I always was there looking at books, going to libraries, going to ancient archives to know. I went to live in Peru, and there I studied the whole history of the coca leaf and how it was prohibited by the priests, who then themselves, they took over the business and all that stuff. Well, I studied the history of prohibition during 40 years, and it's a sad thing to say, but there is one big scam going on since beginning of civilization to get people to lose this bliss that they get, and with the bliss they get knowledge from the heart, knowledge from the source, from the big source of life, and happiness. And the people that prohibit these products, they know exactly what they're doing, so that people, they don't feel sovereign in their mind, but become sheep. And as a matter of fact, there's a historical period, more or less 2,000 years ago, when the kings, when they found out how they could manipulate people by prohibiting these products, start talking about the people like they're sheep. Because people became sheep. People lost their ability to protest. They lost their ability to think for themselves and tell the rulers, no, things are different. It's not the way that you tell us, right? Through the prohibition of these substances, the rulers could muzzle the voice of the spirit within. That we all have, right? It all comes out in these moments of illumination.
Sounds like a similar thing that's happening today.
Ooh, yeah,
I mean,
right.
especially today.
Yeah.
In the Western, I don't know how it is in the Netherlands, but I know in the United States, there's a lot of silencing going on, a lot of muzzling.
Yeah.
And a lot of the citizens are scared to speak up.
Yeah, right.
And I would say, I mean, I don't know how most people would agree or disagree, but most Americans are not educated enough about their own country. You know, so it's like, it's this consumer mindset of like, I feel like the grand scheme of things is they just want us to buy and, get distracted with, this individualistic mindset of, what can I buy? How can I gain? How can I, consume,
Right.
but we're not like, I think the majority of people are not really recognizing the big picture of what's happening today, which sounds similar to what you were explaining.
Yeah, I guess especially in the States, since the States is the country that leads, let's say, not only the Western world, but puts its stamp on the whole the narrative that goes through the world, that the world accepts as the official narrative, let's say. The people in the States, they don't have to listen to narratives that come from France or Luxembourg or Ulaanbaatar there somewhere. No, what comes from the States, and that is the official narrative. And of course, it's also true that the information that we get from the United States, it's so overwhelming through the media. I mean, you look here or in Europe or wherever, half of the time the news is about what's happening in the States and not what's happening back home or somewhere else.
Right.
And nowadays, lots of, or most of the stories are very violent
Right.
and terrorizing.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to go on the
it's
news
like,
anymore. Huh?
Why would you want to turn on the news to watch things that are just kind of fear-inducing? You know?
Right.
And that's the reason why it's been 3 years now since I've had no social media.
Yeah.
You know, I deleted all my accounts, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and a lot of people really looked at me in a weird way. They said, they just said, you're, what are you doing? You know, you're not, I can't tell you how many people told me, like, you need an Instagram account. You need a TikTok account, as if they knew what was best for me.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I think I can handle this. You know, because I think people find it uncomfortable when people are not doing the norm.
Yeah, you're not with it, right?
Yeah, I'm not following the sheep, as you said. I'm kind of going completely against, in a very extreme way, of going against the norm. You know, I have the YouTube channel, which, you know, I log in to upload the video, but I'm not on it. And, you know, in fact, on most browsers today, they have a plugin. It's called a plugin where you can actually block yourself from seeing the YouTube feed. So you know how when you log into youtube.com and, you know, you have all these suggested videos, and most videos you're like, why are these videos being suggested for me?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, it's a way to block it so that every time you go online, you don't see and you're not influenced by this. You know, the internet is a very powerful tool to influence our thinking.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of platforms these days are only pushing content to what we want to see and to what we want to believe. They're not showing the other side of it, you know? And so that's my expectation. My expectation is that I don't want other companies, these big tech companies, to push crap in my face. And I'm not giving the permission to say yes. And that's what's happening today, is that most people's feeds are unsolicited crap, in my personal opinion. You're being pushed crap constantly, every day, advertisements, political jargon, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to just allow this to happen. And I wonder why people's anxiety levels have increased. I wonder why people's depression has increased, because, you know, I remember during the pandemic, I can't begin to tell you all of the lies that were being pushed by the news sources, and it was fear-inducing. I suddenly thought I should keep washing the gasoline handle, you know, until there's no COVID before I put gas in the tank. I remember those days where I was constantly worried about my mom. Oh, is she gonna pass away from COVID, you know? And none of us ever got COVID. You know, I'm not saying that COVID wasn't around. It's just the heightened sense of our fear was unnecessary.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
And I think expectations is, and I wanted to ask you this, is I have expectations in life. When they're not met, an emotional transaction happens. I don't know what that process is, but it happens. Let's say I had the expectation of a friend visiting me, and we had planned this date for a while. And this friend decides to cancel last minute.
Yeah.
says, oh, I can't make it. And I've already made all these plans.
Yeah, right.
All of a sudden, I'm becoming very resentful.
Yeah.
But what I've learned in my experience of living in Colombia, I've had several occasions of people ghosting me.
Ghosting.
Ghosting is a term where people, just don't show up and they don't give you a reason. They just kind of disappear, right?
Yeah.
So I've had many friends in Colombia where we've made plans and they cancel last minute. And I can't tell you how many times for about a year and a half, I would just had this emotional baggage of resentments of like, why are people like this? Then what happened was I realized I started gauging my expectations and reducing them.
Yeah.
I reduced my expectations so much that I started setting boundaries and also not being the one leading to plan the event.
Yeah.
So instead now, with my personal boundary, when people are wanting to get together, I just say, okay, cool. Let me know when you know your plan.
Yeah.
Instead of expecting an event to happen or expecting expectations of another person, I just say, okay, cool. Thank you for telling me. I'd love to hang out with you. I'd love to get together. I think that'd be a great idea. Let me know when you want to get together.
Yeah, right.
And now I allow other people to lead and to plan instead of me doing all of the planning. Then after a while, I call them friend dates. You go on a date with a girl or a guy and, after a while you get to know them. It's the same concept with a friend. Instead of kind of meeting a new friend and giving them all this information about my life, I just go on 3 friend dates and I kind of gauge where this person is at. Yeah. Who is this person? Can I trust them? Can I give them more information? Can I let them in my life? And that's been a really healthy approach for me, instead of just meeting a person and just trusting that everything that I know I am, empathetic, I'm on time, I'm very organized, and I had this expectation that they'll do the same thing. That's not a realistic thing for me to think, because everybody in this world is so different.
Yeah, and especially, I think that the mentality here, starting in Colombia, but also further south on this continent, is quite different from our mentality.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you that I lived for years in Peru, and in Peru, you would make dates with people, be invited to parties, or invite people over to come to your place. They would never show up on time. Never, ever. As a matter of fact, coming in time, that was seen as something not done, right? That you would come later, maybe an hour later, to give the people the time to organize themselves, prepare their house, whatever, and then you would come. Or you would not come. I remember with my wife, we prepared a dinner for some people we had invited. After an hour, I called and said, how are you? All right? You're coming? Yeah, sure. I'm with my foot in the taxi. These people never showed up. And then I saw them a week later, maybe, and I said, damn it, man. Hey, Franz, don't get upset, It was not possible.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's like crazy in America where we are on time. And if we're a minute late, they'll be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, oh, were you lost? Like, I've been waiting here for like 2 minutes, right? This incredible thing that happened to me moving to Colombia has helped me to reduce this expectation of people showing up. And it's so funny that that's the new norm. It's the new norm for me, is that if they don't show up, I've noticed Colombians, the way they act towards each other is like, ¿Qué pasó? Okay, todo bien? Todo bien? Like, they're not like, ¿Qué pasó? What happened? Why didn't you show up? I was planning. How they take it is just like, oh, it never happened. We'll do it next time.
Yeah, right. They don't get upset that way, right?
Right.
No. That's why they can smile all the time.
And why do you think that's their expectation?
Well, their expectation. What is their expectation?
Yeah, how did we get from us being the way we are in the Western culture to Colombians really taking it loosely? Like, for example, I think yo creo que soy medio colombiano. I'm like half Colombian right now.
Oh, good.
Because when people show up late now, I just do my own thing.
Yeah.
I don't even make a fuss about it. I just walk away. I don't even text them. I don't be like, hey, where are you? I can't tell you how many times a year and a half I'd be like standing there frustrated, livid, and my blood was boiling. And an hour later they're like, ahorita. Right now. I'm coming. So now what I do is, we had a discussion in a previous podcast about boundaries, is we allow people to treat us the way they treat us. It's nobody's fault but our own. It's incredible how many times we just allow people to treat us because we're not setting the correct expectations. So now what I do is, hey, I noticed you're late. I'm going to hang around for another 10 minutes. If you're not here, I'm going to make plans.
Yeah, right. I'm gone. Yeah.
But the problem in the past was it was close to this idea of, if I leave, I feel bad. I was the one that I abandoned their situation, oh my gosh, and then I would feel bad and guilty, and there was this codependency, and my emotions were living in theirs, and now I don't need to do that. I get to allow people to take responsibility for their crap, and I get to allow to take responsibility for my crap. And by saying, hey, you know what? I'll stick around for another 10 minutes. If you don't show up, I'm going to make my own plan. Feel free to call me next time. And instead of me calling the other person and making another plan, I allow the other person to take the lead. And I can't tell you how many times, most cases, they'll never call.
Oh, yeah. Well, what I find out that people, they will respect you more if you just go your way, and they know what happens. They don't put too much store by it, but if they like you as a friend, they will engage you again, right?
Right, because they know now the rule book. They can open up the book and read, okay, Robbie will leave if I don't show up after 10 minutes. So I should probably not be late next time. It's a story. I had a friend that told me a story about his wife. Every time they're going out to dinner and the wife takes an hour to get ready. Normal. And they're trying to go out by 7, and she's like 8:30. So the husband in this case set a boundary. He said, you know what? I really get bothered when we have a dinner date and you're spending an hour and a half and we're showing late to dinner, and I'm hungry, right? So he said, you know what? Next time, what's going to happen is if dinner's at 7 and you're not ready, I'm going to go on my own and you can meet me there. And she didn't think he was serious. So it happened again. She was getting ready, 7 p.m., and then she heard the car start. And he just went off, and he went to the restaurant by himself. He wasn't angry. She called him up and said, hey, what's going on? Where are you going? I told you, I'm going to dinner. I'm going to dinner. We said 7 o'clock, and I said, if you're not ready by 7, I'm going to go there. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, I said, yeah, well, whenever you're ready, meet me at the restaurant. So now she has this new expectation. He's not allowing her to treat him the way she's always been treating him. Now he set the rules. So now she thought about it. And she said, wait a second. All this time, he's been wanting to leave early. He's driving. It's his gas. And now she's thinking, I have to drive. It's my gas. And now I'm paying out of pocket. Everything was going pretty smooth. So now she complied. For every time they had a dinner date, she would leave exactly at 7 o'clock, which is incredible. It's kind of similar to the story of like, if you don't show up past 10 minutes, I'm going to leave. So have you had experiences like that?
No, but I can completely understand that this is a whole educational process.
Right.
That maybe we, because of our more ancient European culture, we've learned already in the past. And then here, how shall I say, look at it. I know that people here, they didn't have the facilities to meet. At times they have to go to, let's say, to meet somebody, but suddenly a part of the road is gone because the river took it along, or the horse runs away, or God knows what, right? The facilities that we have had in Europe since hundreds of years to make us able to come in time and to respond to the obligations that we create by accepting dates, like you say, right, at
Right.
certain hours. We've had that. We've had that already instilled in us for a long time, and that, like you say, this lady had to learn it from her husband who drove away to go through that process too and come in time. She became a little bit North American that way, right?
Right.
Or
Yeah.
Swiss. In Europe, we
Yeah.
say Swiss. The Swiss like to come on the second.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. They're more than the Germans, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the point is, I know that the subject we're talking about is expectations and emotional transactions. My whole life has consisted of emotional transactions. I think I've wasted the majority of my life emotionally wasting my time, right? And not living in the moment, not living in the present, not having joy, not second guessing just going with the flow. I used to be the person that looked at the menu for like 10 minutes trying to figure out what to order. It's like, it's a burger, pick a burger,
Yeah.
So, I think this is a really important conversation that most people need to hear right now, because I don't know how it is in Latin America, but in the Western mindset, the Western culture, a lot of people are emotionally not able to regulate themselves. They're having a hard time being able to actually therapize themselves. They're going to other people, going to therapists, which therapy is amazing. I love therapy. I think anyone should go to therapy, even if you're feeling great. Therapy is a great way to check in with somebody to really see, okay, how am I doing in life? Am I meeting my goals? Am I achieving what I want to do? It doesn't always have to be about feeling bad. The one important thing that I think I'm learning and I'm starting to overcome is emotional regulation. Emotional regulation, I would say, is also emotional intelligence. A lot of people are focusing on how can I be psychologically intelligent? But emotional intelligence, I think, is even much more important than psychological intelligence, because it allows us to really know how to communicate without allowing our emotions to intercede and confuse things. And I think that learning how to stay within myself and to learn to know how to know what is truthful, what's wrong, how they're talking, how they're, and how do I respond not to react, is a really powerful way of us not taking the bait. And that's just been something that I've been really working on. It's been a good exploration.
Yeah, I must say I see this a little differently. Maybe not that different, but still from another point of view. I believe just that we have been alienated from our emotions. That we are rational people. We have a hard time to understand our emotions, to let our emotions lead us in an intelligent way. Our whole culture is based on the fact that we believe that we are because we think. And we identify with mental images of ourselves instead of with the true self that we are, that is inside us, and that once in a while will show. And I believe that it is something for us to learn better, to understand our emotions and to act upon our emotions. That way we control ourselves better and we are more in tune with our inner self, our emotional self, than just being surprised each time by our emotions without knowing how we have to handle them. Maybe we get mad, maybe we go crazy, whatever, right?
Right.
And that's something that I just have come to this past weekend. Like I told you before, I had come here to see if I could have, through an ayahuasca experience, could find the possibility to heal myself from a pain that I had in my chest, right?
Right.
And I had already come to the idea that maybe this pain was caused by emotions that I could not handle, and that for that reason I had this pain in my chest. So the people there in the ayahuasca retreat, they agreed with that. They said, "Yeah, Franz, that's very possible that your problem is a psychosomatic problem. Right? It's psychological, and then it hits your body in one way or the other to react in a way that is painful because these emotions you cannot handle." And as a matter of fact, as I drank the ayahuasca, normally I have visions or ideas. I do meditation. I have all kinds of things happen. Each time it's different. But this time, the only thing that happened to me was that steadily the pain inside my chest was growing and hurting more and more and more. And then after some hours, when the time had come to take another drink, right? It goes from 2-3 hours and 2-3 times, maybe 4 times a night. I couldn't take it. I just went to the tent and I went to sleep. And luckily I could fall asleep. And I woke up at 6 in the morning and the pain was completely gone.
Wow.
So
you didn't tell me that. So the pain was gone?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I realized that what must have happened is that even though I didn't have any idea of what had happened, what subconsciously or unconsciously had happened to me, that thanks to the ayahuasca, emotions had been expressed inside myself, but not in a conscious way, but that they had, I had my emotions had come to the fore, right, in my brain, and had arranged things without me being aware of it, in such a way that the pain had gone.
Right.
And I hope that in the next days or weeks, I will still become aware of what exactly it was. It happens often to me that, and to many people, that in these experiences, in these sessions, they learn things that they don't really understand, but as the days pass by, that they start to understand with their mind what had happened there emotionally in the moment that they were tripping or high or out of it, right?
Yeah. I've heard different experiences of people using ayahuasca. I think that, everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
So who would you recommend ayahuasca for? And what type of person would you not recommend ayahuasca for?
Well, I think in the first place that the people themselves know that they want something. I mean, all the people that I meet, they have some kind of problem somewhere where they feel that they want to understand better. They don't understand by going through psychotherapy and other therapies that were not able to give them the answers that they were looking for. And that little by little, they themselves, they come to the point that they want to go and see one or another person that works with these mind-altering products, and in the hope that they can help them to get out of their ego that kind of constrains them, and that way get answers from beyond, from their soul, from their heart, from the spirit within, right? Because in the process, the blood and the answers that the blood can give one go to the brain, and from the brain, the mind gets the message little by little.
That's a good point. Before we wrap up, I think that it's important to say that ayahuasca can be a really good resource for people to emotionally see things that maybe there were just so many layers, right, of things that they can't uncover themselves. Yeah. Most important thing, I think something really important to talk about is that one must still do their own due diligence of healing themselves, allowing themselves to emotionally feel their emotions, and not just expect that one ayahuasca trip is going to do it for them. I think personally that, healing is a really long process. It takes years of developing emotionally. And I think a lot of travelers these days, they're going to ayahuasca, but they're not doing their own research. Would you agree?
Well, I must say that I don't know that many people. I don't move among the people that come here for ayahuasca tourism.
Right.
Where I go, I'm always the only foreigner there.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
I saw that in this ayahuasca tourism in Peru, but I don't relate. I don't relate to these people. I don't like search their company. Right? I have a thing that when I'm in a foreign country, I look for the locals, and I don't look for the expats, and then I better stay at home.
Right. Well, this has been a great chat. Tell me something. What would you want people to know about expectations, about emotional transactions? How would you, the person that's listening right now, what would you like for them to know to save them years of wasting their time emotionally focusing on the wrong things and also having the wrong expectations?
I believe that the first thing is not to take yourself too seriously. If you are just fixed on your own ego, you're unable to see the other people in the world. You're unable to enjoy your surroundings. So there's lots of techniques for people to take a step backwards from themselves. Just sitting with a proper posture, breathing properly. What you can do, you can sing a bit, like the
kind of like what you do.
Yeah.
I learned that from you.
Yeah.
Do it again. Yeah. Yeah, so I learned that from you because anytime I'm walking around and I hear your voice, it's very comforting to hear that. So I started doing that ever since I start to get a little bit of anxiety, or if I'm thinking or focusing on the wrong thing and it triggers me, I just go, hey, oh, hey, oh.
Yeah. I had once, I was in a terrible state of mind, and with lots of fear, lots of crazy things going through my head. And I sang the whole. I started singing Om because I don't have no like a shaman, no songs that I can sing to flow away on these melodies, right? So I started singing Om for a long time, hours and hours, and with a certain technique of breathing, that with the sounds of my song of the Om, I would do it in such a way that not only the O but the M at the end, and I would put emphasis on that M, so that with the I felt that the vibrations pushing everything going out to my head, and that I pushed all the ideas that were there in my head. I pushed them out of my head.
Wow!
And then over time, I started at 10 o'clock and maybe like 3, 4 in the morning. Okay, I started just singing sounds that I had been singing consciously, Om, 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 and doing the pushing. But by 3, 4 in the morning, I just started singing unconsciously, and words came out, sentences came out. At 6, 7 in the morning, I said, what am I singing? And I was singing Bhagavad Gita. I said, what is that? Bhagavad Gita. I'd heard about it. I Googled it. It's a book from the ancient Indians, right? And I looked it up. And in that story, I found the answers to a problem that had bugged me for months and months, that I was looking for. That I don't know how I got to it, but it just came unconsciously, came out, and because of that, I realized that it's possible to just sing in such a way that you liberate yourself from whatever is in your mind,
Right.
and let your mind talk to you on its own accord. Right?
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
What you just shared with me is incredible. And thank you. You've been a really good mentor to me. You really have. Knowing you has been a piece, you've been just one little puzzle to my big picture. Because meeting somebody like you, you've really shared with me that not taking myself too seriously is the answer. In fact, if I know who I am, why should I take myself seriously? I mean, anybody could assume things of me and I could just be like, yeah, you might be right, you know? And so I want to thank you for your friendship and thank you for being on this podcast and sharing your experience, strength, and hope with the people. And I really, truly believe that you're living a life so unique to what other people are living. And you're living a life of peace. You know, and somebody your age, which you're very young still,
Thank you.
is that you're really living a simple life. And I have it on my phone. It says, you know, keep it simple.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
right.
you read that the other day. Is
Yeah.
if we're keeping it simple, then we can live within our peace, you know? And I think the peace that we have is much more worth than anything we'll ever own. It's much more valuable than any relationship we'll ever have. Peace to me is like the answer to the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's living within myself and then knowing that if I don't have people around me, I can have peace.
Yeah. Right.
And when I'm around people, I could have peace. And of course, we're social creatures to be able to be creative and have that balance and find new friends. And, you know, it's like for the rest of our life, we don't have this idea that we're going to be alone and we're going to be miserable. We get to journey with people.
Yeah.
And for
right.
the rest of our life, there will always be people around us that will be needy enough to need us and that we'll never be alone. I mean, did you ever imagine you'll ever be in a hotel with other travelers and spending your time and experience? It's just incredible where life takes us. So not taking ourselves serious enough is trusting that fate will guide us to places that we never actually ever imagined we'll ever be in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's always new. And I must say that I learned in my life that the pleasure of life is not to possess, but to be able to communicate with other people, and that the richness of life,
Right.
of existence, is in the engaging other people, in being able to share your emotions, and that's much more important than anything else.
Absolutely.
And in that respect, you thanked me for being a certain way a guide to you, but by the same token, you have opened up yourself to me, and that for me has also been a very enriching experience, and I'm
Great.
very happy for that too, Robbie.
I am too.
It's nice to be able to be here with you and to
Yes.
be able to chat like that, and give this conclusion that we come to as a
Yeah.
message to the people that might listen to us and look at us and say, yeah, well, whatever they're saying, the conclusion of the conversation is all right, because that's what it's about, right?
I agree.
Sharing with other people.
I agree. And I think that you're really making an impact on a lot of people you journey with. Continue your journey. And, you know, it's funny how much of an impact we can have just one person at a time. We don't need to change the whole world at once.
No.
It's just one interaction at a time.
Yeah, right.
You know, and also to know that we're not perfect. We're human beings. We're not human doings. That we get to mess up. That we can make mistakes. That we're allowed to be imperfectly perfect. You know. So thank you again for being on the podcast. I encourage you guys to do what France was saying, is to not take yourself too seriously and live within yourself, have joy, and, you know, really search. There's so many books and podcasts and education out there that you could be really searching for. So continue to watch this podcast, subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell notification icon, and also leave a comment, because it would really help the podcast as I'm growing this. And we'll see you guys on the next one. I have this much water left. Jackson, are we lost? We have arrived in Rome. Tyrona, Tatacoa, the Dead Sea, Jordan, Bogota, Japan.
Drink up, ring diamonds, me and my homies vibing. Except for my pocket, cause we on the corner grinding. I'm in the candy pane, Trump with the heavy, you think I'm swole. I can take you where you want.
Remember, You have value, you have purpose, you are loved, you matter. Focus on your goal, and remember, you have the impact and the opportunity to make a difference one person at a time. Let's go, guys.
Viva Mexico, cabrones!
You're gonna be the president of France in the future.
What?
I will introduce you to... Oh! Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I want to live this life so when I get old I can say, hey, look, I had a great life.
Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel where I travel around the world and I share my experience, my strength, and my hope with the people I encounter every single day. Travel and journey with me around the world as I see the most beautiful parts of this mundo. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and remember that you are loved.